Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Hello. I'm really glad that you're here. What we're going to paint today is the phrase, very good still. Now, as I sat with the scripture that I just read, I kept thinking about how easy it is to believe that everything else God has made is good, except ourselves. We notice our flaws, our struggles, and the places that feel kind of unfinished in ourselves. So today's painting is a reminder that God's declaration of very good hasn't expired, even when life is messy or incomplete or hard. That goodness is still there. So I'm going to walk you through this painting step by step. There's absolutely no pressure to get this right. You can use the colors you have or just what you prefer. Move at your own pace and let this be a quiet moment for you. Grab your supplies and let's get started. Hello, friends, and welcome to our painting today. So I am going to get started by warming up on my scripture page. And just a heads up, if you don't want to write all of this out yourself, you can just print off my printable that I have with the scripture already ready for you, cut it out, glue it in, use washi tape, whatever you like to make this page yours. This is your journal. I want it to feel like yours, so you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. If you do want to write it out, I recommend getting a waterproof pen. So let me just show you the one that I have. It's just a micron pen, so that way when you put your watercolor over it, it won't bleed. Don't try to use a regular pen, it will bleed and all of that, unless you're planning on leaving this blank and not putting any watercolor over it. Then you can use whatever you want. So with that in mind, I am going to get warmed up and talk you through what we're doing. So I like to warm up with a big brush and just by painting with water, okay? And you'll get the hang of this if you haven't painted before. It's actually like super fun to paint with water first. And what I'm doing is I'm not painting all the way to the edge because, you know, we got clear water and we got white paper. It's hard to see what's going on here. And I'm going to grab my palette and I'm going to grab some of the colors that I'm putting on my piece here. So I'm just grabbing some of this blue here and then dropping it in. And then you see it's going to spread wherever there's water. Okay, my paper will start to curl. That's another reason why you want to be a little bit careful about how much water you put on here and not paint super close to the edge. I'm also being mindful here of where the binding is so I don't get a bunch of paint and stuff inside of those holes. I think I'm going to grab some of this green and pop it in just like that. I'm not going back and forth with my brush. If I do, it'll just turn into one color, which is totally fine if that's the look you're going for. I like having this look where the colors kind of like play together. So once I do about half of my page, I'm going to add more water. And the reason why I'm not doing all of the page with water to begin is because this effect here of having the watercolors kind of play, it only works if the paper's wet. Okay, so that's just a little tip there. And I also like starting with water because the water is going to naturally lighten up the color and that way we can still see the words. But let's say that you got like a lot of paint in one spot, like, I don't know, like that. You're like, uh-oh, I don't like it. That's okay. Just grab your brush. Okay, I got it wet. I'm going to dry some of it on my paper towel and I'm just going to add more water and then spread it. Okay, now I've got, what'll happen is you'll get puddles that kind of come down on the edges, right, from it curling. So I just need to mind my puddles. What I mean by that is I'm going to grab a brush that is mostly dry. Actually, this one's completely dry. And I'm just going to pick up some of that paint and then wipe it on my paper towel. I'm using it as like a little sponge. Okay, and watercolor is going to dry lighter than what it looks when you first put it down. So if you want to add stronger pops of color, you totally can. I'm kind of feeling, let's see, I think light and airy is nice, but I'm going to add just like a few surprises. Call this little surprise pops of color. I'm just kind of tapping paint down. Now you do whatever you want to do. Use this page, like I said, I like to use it to warm up. Don't beat yourself up. Try something, you know? And if you don't like it, that's okay. You learn that you don't like it. So I'm keeping these stronger pops of color not right over the words, and that's because I want to be able to still see the words. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking that. Let me go over a few supplies that I'm going to be using for this specific project. So I am going to be using a medium and a small round brush. I am going to also be using a couple extra things, okay? Not too many, but I've got some colored pencils. You can just use whatever colored pencils you have at home and whatever colors go good with your painting, okay? If you want to follow mine exactly, that's totally fine. I've got a blue, a gray, and kind of like this yellowy green, and then some white. I also have gel pens. If you don't have gel pens, just keep in mind you can use whatever you have at home. You can totally do this with just watercolor or whatever things. Like, go raid your kids' art supplies. Maybe they have things like this you can borrow. But yeah, feel free to just add to or change things up. Whatever feels good to you, that's what you should do, okay? Another thing that is super helpful for classes in general, for watercolor class, is a spray bottle. That's because pan watercolors, they're all dried out, so this kind of wakes up the paints, so to speak. And I also really like my heat tool. Okay, and I use this just to dry my paintings really fast because look, I don't have a lot of time, and I'm guessing you don't have a lot of time either. So this is super helpful. If you don't have one of those, you could also use a blow dryer. That is a totally legitimate option. You could totally do that. And obviously you're gonna need some paper towel. So make sure that you've got those things. I'm gonna dry this up really quick and then we'll begin our tutorial. All right, let's go ahead and begin. Now, you might look at this and think, I don't have good handwriting. It's okay. It's all right. We're going to block out just some really simple shapes and then we're going to get going. So I've got just a regular old mechanical pencil. Grab whatever pencil you want. And the trick with watercolor is when you're putting pencil down, you want it to be as light as possible. You might notice I'm going to make mine just a little bit darker so that you can see it on camera, but you just go as light as you can and where you can still see your pencil lines, okay? This might take a little bit of getting used to if you're new, so don't sweat it. It's totally fine. So I'm going to guess about where the middle is, and I'm just going to draw very lightly a line going across the middle. I'm going to do my finger measuring thing. It's pretty close. Probably need to bring it down just a little. Okay. There we go. Erase this line above. And this is where I'm going to put the word good. I know that for this particular page, good is really important. It's the focal point of the piece. So I'm going to write out good. And the center line is just supposed to be about the center of my letters. Kind of want it to be big. You can make yours in whatever style you want. So if you want to do like cursive or you want yours a little bit taller, you totally can do that. And I'm If you notice, I'm holding my pencil closer to the end here. That helps me to sketch a little bit lighter. Okay, I'm running out of space. All right, I have to squish this, which means I have to make adjustments. All right, gonna adjust the G, scoot over the O. Again, this is why doing it light is pretty helpful. All right, maybe about there. And you know what? Wonky lines, imperfections, welcome. We welcome them. This is your personal art journal, so let this be a place where you can kind of rest and play and experiment and enjoy yourself. Okay, so got like a basic structure of good. I mean, it's not perfectly even, it's good enough, okay? And then up here, I'm gonna put very, so I'm just gonna give myself like a little line where I can write it kind of neat. And I've just got all caps. I just think that it's easier to paint all caps. And I gave the R like a fancy little whoop, little tail there. You don't have to. Okay. And then down here on the bottom, I'm just thinking about spacing. Maybe drop it down about here. And I like the finger measurement trick. So I want it to be kind of similar in height. So I'm just measuring with my fingers. I'm gonna bring it down here. That's close enough. Look, we don't need to grab a ruler for this. If you want to, no judgment. Just saying you don't have to do that, okay? Kind of want it scooted over a little bit. I might do that. I might, as I'm doing it. I am for sure doing that. You know, you're allowed to change your mind, make adjustments. Okay, that probably looks super confusing. But I know what's going on. I am going to clean up some of these extra pencil lines. Okay, I like using a kneaded eraser, although you definitely don't need to have one of those. It's like this. It's super fun to play with. It's a little squishy. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly just erase some of these guidelines. Okay, so remember, with watercolor too, once you paint over pencil lines, you can't erase it. So that's why I'm getting rid of like these extra little sketchy lines and that guideline we had in the middle. Another option is if you really, really dislike the look of pencil lines, you can actually outline all of this first with a waterproof pen like I did on here, okay? And it would give you just a bolder look because you're going to be using ink for that. And then you can like kind of paint around it. So feel free to adjust as you want, okay, to your own preferences. Okay. And what I'm looking for now, I am just trying to have like the bones of my work. Okay, so I'm using my kneaded eraser to kind of lift up some more. Might be, again, harder for you to see. I can see it. You do the erasing to the point that's comfortable for you, okay? So I've got good over here. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get my paints ready because they're sleepy. And I am going to be using this cobalt blue. Use whatever color you like, okay? So for this example here, I'm gonna just paint one color and then I'll do like some decorations after. So I'm gonna move that. And the way that I like to do this, because I'm not a hand letterer or anything like that, but when I'm painting letters, think of it as writing and then filling in, like almost like you're coloring in a letter, okay? So I'm gonna just kind of draw with my brush, okay? I'm doing the bones first, okay? Just like that. See, it's like pretty thin. And then I can go in and fill it in some more. So however thick you like, I am also adding like a little softness to the ends there. You could add a serif on the end there. You don't have to be getting all fancy either if you don't want to, okay? But if you're like, no, I love fancy, well, then go fancy, okay? I am just trying to make good a bit thicker, and I'm just building it up just a little bit at a time. And if it's not all even thickness, that's okay. All right, you just do your best. All right. Now I've got my O. And again, circles are kind of hard to do, and ovals, like to make them perfectly even. But it's kind of this imperfectness in this piece that is really kind of charming. I remember my art mentor telling me how it's these like little imperfections that we see in other people's work that we find charming, but then we're hard on ourselves about. And that really helped me to embrace like these little imperfect lines. It's all good. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with this cobalt blue. I'm just adding a bit more thickness to the letters. Gives it a little bit more weight. Okay, whenever I get to the edge of a paper, it always feels super awkward. So if you have to turn your book, then do that. Okay, one quick tip. If you want yours rounded like this, see how this line comes straight down and then we go straight like across like that? it creates right here a sharp corner. So I can just kind of round it off here and here. And that'll just soften the look of the letter, almost more like bubble letters. I did that with the G there too. So just something like that. Just trying to give it a little more weight. There we go. Sweet. Now, I started with good because this was such a big focal point in our piece that kind of feels nice to do that first. I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick dry because I have been known to put my hand in wet paint and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to dry this real quick and then we'll continue. As you're painting, if your paper starts coming up like this, you can grab a binder clip and just hold your paper down. Okay, so for very still, I'm going to give it the same treatment. So I'm going to go with this green, this emerald green. And I'm going to do the same thing that we did with good, where we're starting off with the bones, okay? And then I can thicken it up. But I'm going to do one other thing with this. So I'm not making it quite as thick as good. Kind of want to make you taller, V. And then the other thing I'm doing is I am actually going to, while it's wet, grab a tiny bit of that blue and drop it into the wet paint. Now this paint area, it's not very big, so you're not going to see as much movement as like we saw with this, okay? And what happens is you can see that the watercolor just kind of spreads around. So there's like some little spots that have a bit of blue and some that do not, which is kind of fun. And actually I kind of want to make this V a little bit bigger. So just going to add a bit more paint. I just got rid of some of that blue so I can reintroduce it. If you have big puddles, you just clean it off right here on your paper towel. So your paper towel is a tool, so use it. All right. Again, start by adding the bones and then thickening it up. And if you get, like if it gets a little out of control, which can happen with watercolor, you can always tighten things up with a colored pencil. Like you can do an outline around it or something. So don't stress, okay? Okay, this R is going to run into the Y, so I'm going to need to adjust that. Just popping that color in here and there. Okay, I would not suggest doing this, but just moving some of those pencil lines. That was a little dangerous. All right, now we have space for UY. Dropping in a bit of that blue and then walking away. Okay, we're going to do still in the same way. All right, so if you notice your paint's not really moving, it's just that you need more water. So I'm going to add just a bit more water to my brush. And if you need to get into a spot to like make it a little bit crisper, hold your brush more up and down so you can use the point of your brush rather than the side. You know, I forgot to add the comma after good. So I'm going to end up doing that with colored pencil. If you are not going to use colored pencil, then make sure you add a comma after good in your paint. Giving that L a longer little leg there, just for funsies. Kind of mimics that R a bit. You definitely do not have to do that if you don't want to. Okay. I'm going to give this a quick dry. Okay, I've got my example here because I think it's helpful to know where some potential good placements for the flowers would be. A couple things to think about is like not having everything on the same line. So you notice we have a variety of heights. It just kind of helps the piece feel like the eye is moving around while you're looking at it. And if you're nervous to paint flowers, let me just tell you, look, they're blobs. They're my most favorite flowers to paint because they're blobs. Let me show you how. So I have got purple lake and then this violet ready to go. And I've just got like a little puddle of water going here. Okay. I'm just going to paint right over here. And it's literally like a blob. It's what you think of when you think about a blob. Okay. So just like that, little blob. We can refine things with colored pencil or more paint or gel pens after too. Okay. And while it's wet, I can drop in some of this violet color just because like it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun watching those colors blend together. You might have another color combination you really like for the flowers, so you can use whatever colors you want. And I am just going to paint in these blobby flowers, okay? And I'm just going to use this as my guide here to help me know where about to place them. If you want to add more or less, you totally can. Just tap, tap, tap with my brush, making a blob, just like that. Then adding some more color. If when you add color, it doesn't really move around, it kind of just feels like it's sitting on top, you probably have too much water. Just grab your brush, wipe it on the paper towel, and grab some of that paint and water. That's what was happening on that flower. So you can do that. You can totally do that. All right, this one feels like it's poking its head out and saying hello. So here we go. Add this blobby flower. Then a few more. I think maybe I'm going to go about commit, Christelle. Okay, I'm going to go, oh gosh, I can't commit. It's fine. We're going to go right here. We're going to go right here. I don't know why that was so hard for me right then. Wasn't sure if I wanted to go higher or lower. And then it's okay if you paint over the top of your letters too. You know, as long as they're dry, then they're not going to bleed. Okay, and then dropping in some of that violet. Okay, and I'm going to switch to a smaller brush just because we're doing smaller details. If this stresses you out, you can totally use a colored pencil to do the stems and the leaves. So whatever you want to do. If you are using a brush, one thing to keep in mind is a smaller brush with a good tip will be helpful. And I'm just loading up my brush with the paint and the water. And I'm going to try to hold it more up and down versus on its side. And we'll just go for it. Okay, so and I'll connect these. And then I can add some leaves. You can just fill in a leaf shape. Notice how they're kind of like not all pointing in the same angle. I've got some kind of moving one way or another. That's super helpful just to make the piece feel like it's not so stiff, a little bit more organic. So try that. So when you're doing your stems, instead of going straight up and down, try to like give it a little flow. Okay, imagine it's softly blowing in the wind. I don't know if that helped or not, but just let go. That's one thing I really enjoy about watercolor is you kind of have to let go, because sometimes watercolor's like, I will not be contained. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And then you have to be okay with it because, you know, it does what it does. And just filling in these little leaf shapes here and there. Now this clip is in the way. Goodbye, friend. All right, that's feeling really nice. Now you can totally stop at this point, and I would say that, you know, you could be done here. If you want to extend this a little bit more, let me talk you through a couple of things that I did, and I'll demo just some of it. That way you can also experiment with however you want, okay? So some things that I did was were that I added some gel pen to the word good just to make it stand out a little bit more. I just did some dots, like just all around the inside of the letter. See how that makes it pop just a little bit more? So that's one thing I did. Another thing I did was I used my colored pencil to just add like a little shadow. You know, did you ever do that in school when you're doodling? You're like, can I just add a drop shadow to that? You could also outline if you wanted with, micron, or you can outline with a colored pencil. Really, there's not any right or wrong way to do this. I also added just a little bit more to my flowers. So if you want, you can kind of, let me hold this up so you can see it better. I outlined some of these flowers in gel pen, and then I added like some little circle dots with a gel pen, and I have some like little lines here. That's colored pencil. So really you can just finish this however you want, whatever feels good to you, however much time you have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm really excited to see what you come up with. As you finish working on your page, I just wanted to share one last thought about the flowers growing out of the word good. For me, they represent what happens when we stop arguing with God about who we are and instead begin to trust what He sees in us. Now, I don't believe goodness is something that we manufacture on our own. I believe it grows as we turn towards God and as we allow His love to shape us over time. The flowers aren't there to say, look what I did. They're there to remind us that when goodness is rooted in God, it naturally grows outward, quietly and gently, and often in ways we don't even notice at first. And the word still matters, because even on the days when I feel behind, imperfect, or unsure, I'm reminded that God isn't finished with me. I hope that this page becomes a reminder for you that you're not disqualified from God's goodness, that even if you feel unsure, even if you feel behind, that God isn't finished with you yet either. Thank you so much for being here and for making time for this moment. Bye, friends.